So, Gen Z is doing fantastically well, in the kind of way that a person going through a manic episode running around punching strangers in the face is doing well. That is to say, they're doing terribly. Okay, so it's a slightly shorter video this week. I've had a manic week, got lots of preaching on, but I just wanted to get something out there on something I thought was important and relevant. When I say the Gen Z are not doing well, what specifically am I referring to? There are a bunch of things that we could be talking about. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I did a video on the Israel and Palestine conflict. This is not about that, okay? So if you're not into that subject, that's fine. But it is about what that conflict has revealed in the ideas and the ideology of Gen Z, or Gen Z. If you're American, I know you guys are big into freedom, and you are, of course, free to be wrong. Wrong. So Harvard did a big study on a wide range of social attitudes, and one of the things they asked about was people's perspectives on the October 7th massacre of a bunch of Israelis by Hamas terrorists. So they broke down attitudes by age category, and one of the things they discovered was that 62% of those under the age of 25 considered this to be a genocide. That is lower than the other age groups, but I can understand people not necessarily being clear on what the definition of a genocide is. I can understand how you could have a legitimate disagreement as to what is the correct terminology to use, that's fine. However, when asked whether the killing of these 1,200 civilians by Hamas could be justified due to Palestinian grievances, well, 51% of people under the age of 25 said that it was. Now that is more than half. That is wild. That is an insanely high number. 51% agree that this kind of killing is justified if the grievance is sufficient.
Are you mental?
Now you might say, well, what if they're misinformed? What if they don't know all the details? They don't think it was as bad as it's being made out to be. Well, let's put the two statistics together. So 38% don't think that it was genocide, and 51% think that it was justified. That means that there's 13% of Gen Z that believe that this was genocide and that it was justified at minimum. That is what this tells us. A minimum of 13% of Gen Z think that genocide can be okay. They think that the slaughter of innocent civilians, the murder of families, beheading people, burning people alive, shooting babies, raping women, that this, given the right circumstance, given the right grievances, that can be justified. 13% of Gen Z believe in that. And that's at minimum. Let's be clear. There are probably plenty of that 51% who acknowledge that that's exactly what happened. Maybe they wouldn't quite use the term genocide for it, but they're absolutely okay with those actions being done. Now, as I've said, I'm not making this video about this specific conflict. You might be thinking, well, that's far away, doesn't really affect us. And sure, I think that Gen Z possibly has some sympathies for Hamas, but I don't think we're going to see Greta Thunberg out there with an AK-47 anytime soon. In part because she would have to get there by sailboat, and that would take weeks.
How dare you!
But here's where it is concerning. The reason that they justify this is because they hold to a woke intersectional worldview. That is that they divide the entire world up into oppressor and oppressed categories. And where do they put Israel? They put them under the oppressor category. They view Israel as functionally a white colonialist nation, and therefore it is acceptable for lots of them to be murdered. In the eyes of a significant portion of Gen Z, the men with guns are oppressed and the dead children are the oppressors. Don't ask me, I don't make the rules.
This is insane!
And where this gets much closer to home is it's not like Israeli Jews are the only oppressors in that worldview. What about Bible-believing Christians, heterosexual people, men, white people? So let's say that there is some sort of massacre or atrocity against people who are in those oppressor groups. Well, what is Gen Z going to do? Well, it turns out that a fairly significant proportion of them are going to justify it. They're going to excuse it. They're going to cover for it. And in fact, we've already seen this happen. I don't know how many of you remember the Covenant School shooting, where a trans shooter went into a Christian school and murdered 3 9-year-olds and 3 staff. Now, immediately after that, the police said that there was a manifesto. Typically speaking, manifestos are released very quickly after this kind of event. But what's happened with this one? Well, it's been covered up, it's been buried, no one has seen it, they have not released it. And why is that? Well, as lots of people have said on Twitter, because it says exactly what you think it says. They are running cover for it, they are justifying it, they are excusing it. I don't know if you've ever wondered how nations become genocidal. Well, it's exactly like this. You convince a significant proportion of the population that those being murdered are being murdered because they are bad people, and the ones doing the killing are doing it because they are good people, because they are justified in doing so. This is the pattern with every genocide throughout history, and Gen Z are looking like a genocidal generation, and we have the stats to prove it.
The math checks out.
Now, there are lots of points that we could make about this, but allow me to make just one. Western culture is about to change rapidly. In about 15-20 years time, these people are going to be our political leaders, our culture leaders, our elites. They're going to run pretty much everything. Now, they'll probably do it fairly poorly because they spent all their time in school simply learning how to hate people they consider to be a bigot or a phobe. But at the same time, they'll still be pretty dangerous as they do it because they spent all their time in school learning how to hate people they consider to be a bigot or a phobe.
I hate bigots too. Oh, I hate bigots.
We are very clearly at a tipping point. The West cannot stay the way that it is for much longer. There is radical change on the way. Either we're going to see people turn back to God, we're going to see a revival of Christianity because people recognize just how dark and just how evil things get without it, or we're going to see significant persecution, and this generation will be the one to justify it. And the church needs to wake up to this. Limp-wristed gospel appeasement, where we refuse to take on the issues of our day, or preach challenging passages, or call people to repentance. Those are the exact things that have got us here. Generation Z does not need that anymore. They need hot gospel right now. They need calls to repentance right now. They need to smash their idols right now. Because if they don't, destruction is on its way. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel, please do buy something from wearecontramundum.com. You can support us there or through Patreon or through PayPal. Of course, press the like or retweet button with suitable vigor. And if you are on YouTube, watch this next one.